Hello, welcome everyone to this community open call. So as you know, after the scheduled hard forks that happened after the Roma release in November 2018, this is the first update after them, and that's why it requires a positive community vote. So the vote is ending next Tuesday, 13th, and that's why we wanted to have this public call so you can solve your doubts to make up your mind and cast your vote before the vote ends. And also, it's a pleasure to announce that we are bringing back the public calls to have a stronger connection with the community and to foster the mutual feedback. So expect some of these transparency calls happening regularly from now on. So let's get started with today's topic. We have the luck of counting on some of the Aeternity Foundation core developers. They are here with us, Ulf Wigger, Dimitar Ivanov, Hans Svensson, and Radoslav Robicki. Thanks a lot for being us with here today. So they will first make an introduction on the Iris improvements, and then we'll move on to answer the questions sent in the forum and Telegram, but also the questions you might have here that could pop up after the explanation. So just please post them in the chat here in the Superhero Meet room, and raise your hand in the Jitsi interface, and then we will give you like the stage to make a question, or I can make them for you. Because remember that this call is being streamed on YouTube, so if you don't want to appear in the YouTube stream, please don't turn your camera. So without any more delay, please let's start letting people know the amazing improvements that Iris is going to bring to the Eternity protocol. Thank you.
Dimitar, are you there?
Yeah. Hello everyone. Let me share my screen.
Oh, Gregor Surias is also here with us. Welcome and thanks,
Yeah.
Gregor.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk what we did for Iris hard fork. Basically, those are the subjects today. We're going to talk about virtual machines, generalized accounts, the new shiny paying for transaction, the changes we've done for names, oracles, and state channels. So without any ado, let's talk about the VMs. Basically, one of the biggest changes there is that we finally deprecate AEVM. So far, we had two different virtual machines, and this required some opcode duplication that required a lot of technical depth on our end when we have to add new opcodes, and that would make it much easier to implement new ones because we don't have to implement it in two different virtual machines. And what is significant here is that Fate is much superior than the AEVM ever was. So this is a big step forward, and we're looking forward to deprecating that. There are new crypto primitives, and those allow zero knowledge proofs on Eternity, which I think touches a couple of subjects. Most likely, state channels are going to benefit from that, also generalized accounts, and yeah, this could improve a lot of functionalities. In contracts, there's a new opcode that allows you to update a name. Basically, you weren't able to do so because some restrictions that are now added. You can safely set a contract name, oracle name, account name. You can look up a name, and there is a bug fix with the ANS resolve. It was returning none, I think, if it failed. I don't remember what exactly the bug fix is, but it's fixed. And there is a new opcode that returns the when an ORCO expires. So if that can now become part of a smart contract, you can write logic around that. There are a handful of new string and char functions you can use. And there's a bug fix with the string length that used to return, I think, the byte size of the string. Now it returns whatever is the length of the string to list. Other significant changes are that block hash of the current block can be returned because we know what it is. And that would be the block hash of not the current block, but rather the current key block. In the context of generalized accounts, you can actually inspect what transaction you're authorizing. And there's a new way to define certain remote calls to be protected. Protected call would be one that fails more gracefully. So if a protected call fails, it returns none. I think it returns an option actually. So yeah, and it's important that if a remote call fails, any update there is rollback. With regards of some new functionalities that are going to be present on the next slide, but the bytecode that now includes the version of the compiler. The init function is back. We used to strip init functions because of simplicity and because you cannot use the init function twice. And now in the context of some new changes, the init function is back. And the garbage collection of objects, contract objects, is significantly improved. Now, nested maps are much cheaper, but maybe Hans can later elaborate on that. New significant features are the contract factories, contract cloning, and bytecode introspection. And maybe Gregor can later on describe how cool those are. There have been quite a few discussions if those should be part of the language, and it's better than we have it. It's a bit Ethereum inspired, but it's a great functionality actually. And now generalized accounts. They're basically the same. There's some small improvements. Basically, the pricing model is improved. There was an issue with TTLs. As you know, every transaction has a TTL, and the TTL of the generalized account was overwriting the TTL of the transaction that it wraps. Now it simply is ignored. On Iris, from Iris on, there are no TTL of. The title is wrong here. It's not AVM deprecation, obviously. But yeah, so there are no TTLs of generalized accounts. There is a new transaction type, paying for. It's really neat because it allows a completely new business model with regards of imagine I offer a service and everyone can use my service without paying fees for their contract calls. And I, as a service provider, can be authorizing their transactions, or rather paying for their transactions with the paying for transaction. And how I get reimbursed by my clients is up to my particular business model. Something that is really interesting about the inner transaction that is wrapped by the outer paying for transaction is that it is invalid if it is posted on chain. So imagine Alice and Bob. Bob is the service provider and Alice is the customer. Alice provides Bob with a transaction, and now this transaction's authentication method is invalid if Bob decides to cheat Alice and simply post it on chain. And for whoever is developing tools that use this, bear in mind that we do that with different network IDs, especially for nested transactions inside paying for. Names, basically the biggest change with names is that they used to expire in 50,000 blocks, and a lot of people had complained that this is somewhat random number. So there was an on-chain vote, and the community had spoken. So now names expire in a bit more than 1 year. This really fits the DNS model, and basically names are heavily expired by DNS records, where you actually buy your name for 1 year, essentially. Regarding pointers, there are some changes with Iris release. There are a set of expected pointers, and you can use those in contracts. So, for example, you can check account name, or rather the address that the name points if it had set a pointer for an account, an oracle, a contract. I believe there is also as a channel, which makes a bit less sense. But it is there, and you can use those in smart contracts. And there are also unexpected pointers. So basically, you can put anything you want. So I can put, I don't know, my GitHub handle behind my name. And I can put a pointer saying this is my GitHub handle, if you want to do that. And you cannot use that unexpected pointer in your contract, but you can still use it in your custom built infrastructure. So essentially, you can build your site, and I can log in with my GitHub handle. I don't know. And again, pointers had been heavily revisited. A lot of small polish had been done on different places. For example, you were able to have duplicating keys, and now there is a restriction of the number of keys you can have. The length of each key is limited, and etc. So basically, names are few actually mature now. State channels. Basically, what we did, the biggest change there is that we revisited delegates. So basically, channels are between Alice and Bob, but Alice and Bob can decide to have third party protect each interest. So basically, there can be Dave and Donatello, where Dave is protecting Alice's interest if Alice is gone, and Donatello is protecting Bob's interest. And so far, there wasn't any functionality that allows any of those to be changed. So once Alice and Bob opened the channel, they weren't able to change their delegates. And the only way to change them was to close the channel and open it again, which is quite tedious. Again, they were mixed. So there was a big list that included Dave and Donatello for the channel, and both Dave and Donatello were able to do only / transaction. Another error on the slides, where it says can slash, that should be can snapshot. From now on, delegates are per account. So Alice has her own delegate, that would be Dave, and Bob has his own delegate, that would be Donatello. And Dave can only do updates from Alice's behalf, and he cannot do updates from Bob's behalf. And this really makes little sense in the context of slash and snapshot, but it is really important in the context of forced progress. So basically, if Alice goes missing, Dave can do a forced progress from her behalf and cannot do a forced progress from Bob's behalf, because it would be simply wrong. And yeah, another change there is that we found, and from Iris on we fixed a rollback bug. Basically, when you do a forced progress, or any off-chain contract call for that matter, if it fails, the amount of tokens remained locked inside the contract. But this is fixed now. Hopefully nobody got any issue with that so far. Oracles have a little change that is closely related with the changes in the smart contracts. Basically, you can refer an oracle in a transaction by its name. So far, you had to type its address instead. And this works hand in hand with similar changes in names in contracts. So yeah, thank you for your attention. Now we're open for questions.
Thank you, Dimitar.
Thanks a lot. So we gathered some questions in the forum and in Telegram, but I'm noticing that some of the people that posted the questions are here. So if you feel you want to voice your questions directly, please go ahead, just turn your mic on. And if not, I have them here. I will make them on your behalf. Okay, so I will start making the questions on the behalf of the people who had the curiosity. First, let's start with Marco Walls, as he was wondering, even though I think that it's probably partially solved with the explanation, the question reads, as I'm still struggling with the topic of ANA's pointers, is it possible and desired to have pointers with arbitrary keys, or should it only be possible to set pointers for the known objects, account, channels, contracts, oracles, and so on?
Okay, maybe I'll answer this one. Both make sense. You can have expected keys, like as you said, oracles and contracts and whatever, and you can use those in contracts. But we don't want to limit the use case of names. And if you have a bright idea regarding how you want to build your own protocol and take advantage of the names that are already there, please go ahead. The only drawback would be that you cannot use those in contracts.
Yeah.
Actually, you can use it in the new Fate VM. Yeah, you can query all pointers for a name.
Yep.
The ENS API was extended and actually very functional right now. And the thing with arbitrary pointers is that if you, for instance, decide at one point to replicate the DNS service like Ethereum did with their naming system, then you can do it here as well, with improvements both to security and safety provided by our core protocol.
Great. Thanks a lot, Gregors and Dimitar. Let's go for the next question, also from Marco. What do you think are the most impactful changes in Iris and why?
Maybe Gregor or Radek or Hans?
What was the question? The microphone was stuttering.
Yeah. Question is, what do you think are the most impactful changes in Iris and why?
I would say here two things. The most important thing is the zero-knowledge proof support, because by combining it with generalized accounts, you have a lot of flexibility with the authorization methods of your transactions. So you can implement various signature threshold schemes, and the landscape of the possibilities increased dramatically. The second most important feature are the contract factories, because this is a really big deal breaker for DeFi services running on Eternity, and general user experience improvements and also security improvements, because now it will be possible for DeFi services on Eternity to be much more secure than previously, and also much more usable than previously. Yeah. You're muted.
Oh, sorry. I was saying that if any other point, Radek or Ulf, Dimitar.
Well, I don't know. I can hear myself. I think the paying for transactions is really neat. I personally am excited about the AEVM deprecation because it's going to reduce our technical debt, which is good.
Right.
From my side, I must say I'm the most excited about the contract factories because of the options they provide to you, as Grzegorz said. But also we introduced some actions to be performed the contracts regarding the transactions being made and we use bytecode introspection. So there's a lot of to be added in the terms. Developed applications.
Cool. Thanks, Radek. Okay, next question also by Marco. This is the last one, at least in the forum by him. With zero knowledge capabilities becoming a reality, do you think state channels will still be a relevant feature? Especially as we have not adoption yet, and state channels don't seem to be usable on mobile devices yet. Many Ethereum devs bet on zero knowledge rollups to solve scalability issues.
Yeah, I think those are really apples and oranges. Basically, yes, you can improve scalability with ZKs. But state channels are doing something more. You get instant confirmation of your transaction. You can have contracts between two parties, and it's a bit different. I think those are solving different use cases. For example, if I'm playing a chess game, I don't really need zero knowledge proofs for that. I could benefit providing a smaller state on-chain with my contract if I have to do a forced progress. But this is completely different now.
Okay, thanks, Dimitar. Any other issue or topic to point on this regard? Okay, let's continue. We have a question here with some comments from Liu Yang from ANO, and it reads as follows. It seems that the Iris hard fork would be the most advanced proof of work blockchain in the whole blockchain world. Is it possible to keep it as a classic standalone proof of work chain forever and hyperchains act as a revolution to the future? The hash power of graphic cards needs reliable proof of work projects in the future. Iris should be good enough, and it might be the father chain of hyperchains too.
Maybe Gregor. But basically, this is Iris, and this is not hyperchain's hard fork. This is simply improving the protocol. As you said, as you've seen in my slides, there's nothing about hyperchains. But let's hear Gregor as well.
Generally, with hyperchains, the idea is to migrate Eternity mainnet to a hyperchain. Essentially, all of the benefits of the Iris hard fork, all of the cool new features will be available on hyperchains. So hyperchains is a project focused about bringing the highest level of security to Eternity mainnet. So we become the next Bitcoin, and Iris is about functionality.
Yeah, thanks,
So
Gregor.
like in terms of question, would Eternity be a good proof of work chain? So maybe in the future, but you know, I wouldn't see Bitcoin or Litecoin to go anywhere. And I think it's foolish to hope Eternity would get more processing power than Bitcoin and Litecoin. I would see Eternity as a platform for various decentralized applications, possibly in future a better platform than Ethereum, but we can't really here compete with the simple with being a simple transaction platform, and and Bitcoin is proof of work is a good backbone for us. And yeah, I think we will need to ditch our proof of work, sadly, because we need security more than some vague hope that maybe in the future we will be big enough, bigger than Litecoin, you know.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Arthur. Okay, let's move on. So another question here. What are the major changes for miners with this fork?
Not much, to be honest. From the perspective of miners, nothing will change for them.
They'll just need to update their nodes.
Yeah, that's not much
The mining
change.
pools need to update their nodes. Unless somebody mines by themselves, then they also need, yeah. But if you don't mine by yourself, you mine for mining pool, then probably you have nothing to do.
Great, thank you. Next one. What are the major changes for apps developers with this fork?
The most important thing is that they can simplify their applications 10 times. And this is a really big deal breaker for a lot of projects, especially for the upcoming hot DeFi stuff, which will be built on Eternity.
Yeah, I guess the pay for transaction to improve the usability and onboarding for users to new apps, right?
Definitely. Also, contract factories would make it much easier.
You're muted, Radek.
Oh, sorry. What I was said that the contract factories will make it much more convenient, right? Decentralized applications that consist of more than one smart contract, because they will be able to create them and in some reasonable way. It's something we don't have at this point. And Iris Hardfork will use this things. So yeah.
Great. So really good news for apps developers. Next question. How is the security of the Eternity mainnet improved through Iris through this fork?
Well, no way. The security is the same. There is nothing planned with regards of changing the current proof of work algorithm, and the security is the same. This might improve as soon as there are hyperchains, but this is a different topic.
Well, probably also we can look here at security, not over the whole network or protocol, but security improvements in the smart contracts, for example.
Regarding we introduce bytecode introspection which will allow to verify code of existing smart contract. For example, before one can call in order to ensure whether we are calling this smart contract that does the thing that we think it does. And possibility of cloning contracts would allow to make more assertions on what new contracts are doing, because this is not the case. At this point to check what is a contract doing, one needs to verify the bytecode match requests by reading the assembly of fake, which is very inconvenient. And with the new changes, this process will be simplified, because you can will be able to say our contract does exactly the same thing as one. And we have already verified that. So we are now sure that our, I don't know, contract manager is absolute. So there will be a lot of security improvement in terms of smart contract development itself. But from the protocol side, as I said, nothing interesting.
Great. Thanks a lot, Radek. So next question, what are the major changes to the eternity node?
That was exactly what Dimitar's presentation showed, so I don't think it's worth repeating again.
There is one thing worth saying here. In the presentation, we focused on the consensus breaking changes, but we didn't mention all of the usability improvements in the node. Generally, we started optimizing our sync performance heavily. Right now, the nodes can sync much faster than they did previously. We improved the resilience of the nodes against Eclipse attacks, against malicious peer injection. The node itself is generally much safer, much secure. The network is much more well connected than previously. And there's a lot of new monitoring functionality in the node. So you can, for instance, be aware what forks or orphan blocks are on your local database. You can monitor the network, enable special monitoring mode where you can observe the peers in real time and statistics about them. It's a lot of usability went into here, and this will only get better.
Yeah, but this is already included in current builds, basically. This had not been, basically this is part of our ongoing maintenance. This is not something that would happen with Iris.
No,
it's
that's true, but it's nice to highlight it. It's there's been a lot of work involved here, and then it's nice to point out that we're improving. Very good.
Continuously, yeah. Okay, let's go for the next one that reads as follows. Is there a direct relation between Iris and hyperchains? Can Iris be seen as a sort of preparation to apply hyperchains to Eternity mainnet?
Yes, somewhat yes. Especially some things in our code can be done much simpler by using contract factories and so on, bytecode introspection. Even leaving the init function, the bytecode simplifies a lot of code on our side. So yes, the idea with hyperchains is to migrate Eternity mainnet, ditch proof of work, and move to a hyperchain. And Maternity mainnet will become the first hyperchain if the community approves, probably attached to Litecoin or Bitcoin. And Iris will help towards that.
Great. Cool. Thanks a lot. Let's go to another question. This one popped up in my mind while hearing to the presentation. And it's like, now that we can point an ANS domain to an arbitrary or to any string, could I, for example, if I have a static web page that I upload to IPFS, could I point my chain name to that IPFS hash, that IPFS domain, and using an extension that is able to solve that special .chain DNS, for example, Superhero, could I use .chain domains to access static pages in IPFS which are uncensorable forever?
Yes, and actually, if you take a look at the current version status of the Superhero wallet, this functionality is preliminarily implemented. So if you have the Superhero wallet extension installed and you try to go to a .chain domain, then it probably will try to do something special. So give it a try if you have Superhero installed.
Okay, I will upload a little website to IPFS and make some play around.
Yeah, but
I really like that idea of uncensorable.
Yeah, but
well,
there's no documentation, and feel free to test out the dev stuff.
Yeah, let's see. I'm pretty attracted by that feature of having websites that cannot be taken down by any party. So yeah, I will definitely give it a try. So okay, this is all for the questions that were sent in advance. We have some bunch of questions in the chat. So any of the people that has questions, he wants to voice them directly with his voice, please go ahead. And if not, I will start doing them in order. Okay, so let me go to the beginning.
There is a question about when the Iris hard fork would be implemented if the voting is positive.
Yeah, from Doc Liu, when is the Iris hard fork of Aeternity main chain expected to start?
Well, we have some final fixes to make, and we have to set fork height, and maybe a week or 2 weeks after the vote. I don't know. I don't want to promise something that I'm not sure if we can deliver.
Cool.
No,
Still, it's important to note. Go, Hans. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, there's documentation and lots of things to wrap up, given that the vote is successful. But so no.
Yeah, also think that as soon as the release is published, miners will have a time window to update and made effective the update. Yes,
definitely. There would be a grace period after we release it and before it's actually reached hard fork height. That's the normal procedure.
And first, the hard fork is going to happen on testnet as always. So we know everything goes smooth.
Oh, Mark is saying here, okay, we are getting redirected to the profile of the account pointer. Interesting. So you were already playing around. Nice. Okay, let's see more questions here. There is a question about when hyperchains will be online, about updates in the forum, and the answer is that there will be shortly an update in the hyperchains thread in the forum. So let's keep tuned and paying attention to that thread. And in this call, let's try to stick to the Iris hard fork. We know and we are so glad that everyone is so excited about hyperchains, and that's very, very good. And it's like the reason also why we are putting so much hard work into this. But yeah, let's wait. Of course, there will be a hyperchains AMA call. So in that one, every question about hyperchains will be solved. But in this one, let's stick please to the Iris hard fork.
There's a technical question. Is it possible to point an AES item to IPFS, IPNS address directly, as the early documents mentioned?
I guess that's my very similar to my question.
Yeah, go for it. There's no technical problem here. It's only a matter of user interfaces and integrating it in the appropriate wallets and creating an interface for it. And the technical part is done, it can be done. But whether there will be the willingness to implement a UIs to enforce it, it's a different story.
Yeah, because there will be nothing in the core protocol that will talk to IPFS, IPNS addresses, of course. So this is just a UX apps side of things.
Great. So I think there is no more questions, at least in English, in the chat. Questions related to Iris hard fork, I mean. Anyone after the explanations, comments, and the whole call has any other doubt?
Do you already know when the exact ending of the vote is, or is that possible to calculate, let's say, based on the pattern of the block confirmations?
Let me check. Every vote, it's important to consider that the ends of the blocks are referenced not to a time, not to a specific date, an hour, but to a block, as you might know. So let me check here, because there is in the interface, there is like an estimation of when that block will come. Let me check the most updated. I will share my screen a moment so we can all see it. Okay, so you are seeing it here, right? Okay, so first thing important to note is that there has been a little bit of a spam duplicating the votes. The original, the legit one that was deployed by the Eternity Foundation, it's number 45. This is very important. Please cast your votes in the voting number 45. And if we enter here, we see the current state. It's closing in 4 days, but we don't have the exact date. It should be around 2 o'clock on Tuesday, or which is the same block 400,014 and 20. And this is the current status of the vote. You can see that there has been 96 votes supporting the hard fork for a total of almost 1.8 million Eternity coins. And in the no, we have a couple of votes that doesn't hold any current balance now in the account, so there is no voting power in this no option. Okay, here we are again. Thanks, Marco. I guess the whole community is also looking forward to the hard fork and to enjoy the great features and improvements included as part of the continuation of the Eternity roadmap to fulfill the vision of the community contributing to a more decentralized, private, and free world. So this is a reason for joy for all of us. Thanks. I sum up also thanks Eric, thanks and gratefulness to all the core developers that have been together with us, but mostly for making this possible. I mean, this is the result of a lot of hard work done since the last Lima hard fork, which happened almost 1.5 years ago. So thanks Dimitar, thanks Ulf, thanks Hans, Radek, Gregors, Arthur. Thanks a lot for the hard work. Thanks a lot for accompanying us today and for solving the questions for the people. And yeah, let's continue rocking.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye bye. Have a great day and weekend.